I'll add a little to the introduction. Clint Jeffus, and no matter how it looks, as far as much as I mess with the computers and PCs and set things up, I'm not an IT person at all. Oddly enough, you imagine I'm shocked to find that the person that hired me for my first job that I hadn't seen in 20 years is here today. Hey, Eric. Started in production in the plant, so if people want to wonder how terrible I was back then, Eric's right there. I've been in industry for, like they said, 20 years. All but 2.5 years of that was at the plants in some sort of frontline manufacturing supervisor in the first role, production engineer up through asset management. I did a short stint here in Houston with Total Petrochemicals in corporate strategy before going to BASF, where I did asset management in Geismar at their site, and then moved on to run the McIntosh site as well as a secondary site in Missouri for the plastic additives division as senior ops manager there. So what I do for Voovio is figure out how to bridge that gap. How do we justify things? How do we pay for Voovio? How do we make the accountants understand and feel our pain? I help do that. Also, how do we conform to MOC? How do we work it in our day-to-day operations? So hopefully everybody's got the QR code and we can start moving forward into that. So we're going to ask a couple of questions and set up the cool thing, right? What are people here? You've heard all the issues. We're going to put forward what we think is a good solution to conquering a lot of these challenges as a piece anyway. So just a quick question. As we go into the prep to go into the solution, what are the biggest risks or pains? You can select up to 2 answers in this question. We have for understanding, when somebody comes to your plant the first time, what do they need? What are the gaps? What are they missing? And then by missing those things, what are the risks you see? What are the biggest challenges? See it building up real quick. Onboarding, time to be able to get in the field and perform work. Not just, and I don't mean perform work in the sense that it's just able to push buttons, right? PSM qualified. We're talking about competent operators. And for those people who have been in the plants, live in the plants, the difference between qualified and competent is huge, right? Well, a lot of people can be qualified. We can legally put them there. They can run the plant. But where are those people that taught us how to be engineers 20 years ago? I was just talking earlier about the person who really taught me how to be an engineer was a frontline supervisor. He's the one who taught me how the plant worked. Those superintendents, those people, more and more we're finding that they don't exist. How do we build those, or if we lose them, how do we replace that knowledge and those tips and tricks that they have and they know? So field execution of procedures. So what are the biggest gaps there? We know we've got all kinds of risks, lockout, tagout, obviously. A lot of people have been driven by PSM to get a good handle on that. Some people don't. Procedure doesn't match practice. I can't tell you how many procedures I've pulled back in the production engineer days where, I see what it says, pull the procedure, but that's not what we do. We hadn't done it like that in 10 years. So we got a problem if that's how we expect our new people to on board, and that's what you get to learn from. Unplanned downtime. A lot of people have the termination button or the termination valve as a joke in some of these plants. You turn that, it's how you get fired because you're going to trip the plant. And it's going to be 6 hours to get it started, right? Or those few people. That's where at my last site in McIntosh with BSF. I had 2 people that knew how to start the unit up, one from certain conditions. I've left $1 million a day margin production unit down for days because I didn't have the right person there to start it up the way I felt about it, right? I mean, so it's, I'm getting the pressure from corporate, and hey, we got to start up, it's costing us money. Well, I'm actually saving you money because Kevin is the only one who knows how to start it from where it is right now, and we're going to make a mess. So things like that, if you've ever had that issue, if you've ever had the first question into your mind when you have a power outage, if the first question that pops up is, what shift is on? Who's working? Maybe we've got some incompatibility or inconsistency between shift to shift. And the last one, I promise, before we get to some more fun stuff. As far as verification of that qualified, deeming them qualified in the field, what is that? What does that look like? What are the biggest pain points? What's the biggest risk? Is it the inconsistency in training, the subjective nature? How many do we go out and audit because we can't shut the plant down? We can't do the practice startup and shutdown. We simulate. PSM allows us to do that where they describe to somebody. Are all of our trainers consistent in what they accept as passing or failing? Do they say, well, I trust you? Because nobody wants to be mean and fail someone, especially when maybe it's a pay grade change that they're waiting on, right? Nobody wants to be that guy or that girl to keep somebody from their money. So what is that? And understanding, again, the minimum competence versus qualified. Those are two different conversations that most people in plants, I think they know, but they don't want to talk about. So we just want to go through that to see where that spreads. Christian, I think, will point some of the conversation to these areas as he shows you what Voovio does. Thank you.
So actually, I was at a conference a few weeks ago, and the person presented something that I thought was great, and I thought I would say that statistic as well. But he said that we learn 60,000, we process visual information 60,000 times faster than text. And so I was thinking, God, that's pretty fast. So I went on Google and chat GPT to find the source of this, and it was from MIT Media Labs. But the point here is this is a visual solution, and you can actually solve a lot of these problems today that we've talked about visually. And so I'm going to run through a few different things here, and we're going to talk about knowledge capture as well. That's going to be a big thing. But on the screen right now, some of you will be familiar with this. I'm walking through a plant. This is actually a utilities building. This is built using photographs, which is totally unique. Actually, Voovio is the only one in the world that can build simulation environments, photorealistic simulation environments with JPEGs. We can talk about why that's important later. But the point is, operators having the real plant on the screen is useful. Last week, one of our team was with a customer, and they said, well, they asked, what is your biggest pain point? And they said, isolation of energy sources. And they said, okay, why is that? It was electrical isolation. Well, we have 135 different switches, and only 2 people know what all of those do and which ones to, isolate for certain tasks. Had they had something like this sooner, they could actually search for components. So for example, you'll see these tagged pieces of equipment. In this case, it's just a valve or whatever, which you can interact with. But you could search for all those 135 different switches. In this case, I'm going to just search for a valve, and there you go. So, simple technology. It exists today to solve, a problem, isolation of energy sources. But having that replica is also powerful because you're able to bring things to life, bring understanding to complex systems. So you can overlay flows. Again, if it's too noisy in that environment, you can't get into the field that time, you don't have the SME available, you can utilize these existing tools to achieve your goals, to leave that knowledge transfer goal. Lining up valves. I mean, on loading racks, we hear from customers all the time, being able to practice lineups is really, really useful. You'll see these green boxes are valves with the valve names on them here. If I click on this valve in the bottom left, I can actually review and practice how to line certain things up. You might get warnings if you're not lining that product up correctly. The point here is it's visual, and it's available on demand 24/7, and that's key. So going into knowledge transfer related to procedures, and we're talking about here specific equipment, specific procedures. How can you capture that specific plant knowledge and put it in the hands of new people who may or may not have any manufacturing experience? Again, giving them a visual solution where they can learn by doing 24/7 on demand is key. So I'll just briefly explain what you're looking at. On the right, you have the replica, the digital replica. Voovio uses JPEGs. You've got a map of the facility. Here is your procedure. Now, this could be a pump swap. It could be a loading or unloading procedure. It could be a maintenance procedure. And above that, you have this checklist. And we've heard today, how do you capture that knowledge from people leaving? You start doing interviews, a year before they leave and so forth. But where does that information really go? And what about that really specific equipment knowledge that's critical when you're operating? You can capture that in this checklist. So how do we create that checklist? We walk through procedures with those SMEs those people that have the knowledge, we take the pictures and we capture those action steps. So your procedure may say, line up the pump, step number 1, and that's all it says. But how do you line that pump up? It might involve 10 different things that the field operator needs to do and a few things the board operator needs to do. Well, you would have that checklist here, those 15 action items here, even though it's one step in your procedure. And here, I'm just using my laptop. You could use a tablet. I'm actually physically performing these actions. So therefore, learning by doing is key. It's powerful. Knowledge retention, me understanding and repeating this procedure time and time again, or if I just want to review it before I go into the field to perform it, is key. And another thing of knowledge capture, we mentioned tribal knowledge before. You can put those in knowledge snippets. Customers use this all the time. Or videos, you'll see a video in a second. You could put a 30-second video clip of how to perform this step if that's needed. It's super easy to access and absorb. And then you can actually perform that step. So having that kind of interaction is key. And this type of technology is available right now. You can start your knowledge capture process right now and put this in the hands of all of your operators. We talked about standardization as well. Procedures maybe being performed inconsistently between shifts or not as the procedure says. This is a great way to standardize procedures as well, and how procedures are performed and how people train on them, because trainers use this standard way to communicate how this should be performed. And again, you can practice it 24/7. I mean, this is always available. Everyone has a laptop now. You can do it remotely before you go in the field, from a training room, whatever. We talked about also, what about verifying that people know what they need to know? At the moment, a lot of that is, you verify, it's kind of subjective. You ask them questions, you maybe shadow them, you watch them do some things, but how do you really verify people know, let's say, an entire procedure or other specific tasks? Again, having an environment like this, a simulation environment, you can do that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to perform a couple of tasks in the replica, and you'll see that it gives me immediate feedback. So I'm going to fully close this valve, and I'm going to confirm I've done it. And you'll see in the green box, it says I got it right. So you get that instant feedback. It's like a virtual SME telling me, yes, I did it right. What if I make a mistake? So let me walk down here, and I'm going to crack open this valve. And I'm going to confirm I've done it. And you'll see I get immediate feedback, and it's tracking everything I'm doing, and it's logging all the interactions I've made. The beauty of simulation is you can try again. You can review and try again. So you can repeat. I'm going to drag the avatar down here. It was that blue valve with a knowledge snippet that's always left open. And I got it right after 2 attempts. So again, I can self-test myself anytime, or my training coordinator can make this a formal assessment as part of my qualification or requalification. And remember, you can do this on entire procedures or sections of procedures. We talked about how do you use that? How can you use that type of data in terms of knowing where the gaps are? So I just want to show you this, because this is a test that was assigned to a group of people. The passing score was 80%. You might want to make it 100%, whatever it is. They had unlimited attempts, and here on this graph, you will see represented the passing score. 13 of these people got 100%, 7 got an 87, but 3 of them didn't make it. 3 of them didn't achieve that passing score. So that is a knowledge gap right there. Those 3 individuals and that specific procedure. And drilling down a bit more, you can even see where people are going wrong in terms of the actual steps. And you might be able to see common missed steps. And again, you can act on that. So we'll see here, step number 4 was performed incorrectly by those 3 individuals. So you might think, okay, well, why is that? So let's open up that step. And you'll see there are two fairly identical valves next to each other, and they were opening up the wrong one. So again, you can use this as a tool. It's another form of data to, let's say, prioritize your time and your training priorities. Maybe I'll walk these guys out in the field and make sure they understand why we're opening the right valve and not the left valve. Do we need to improve the wording in the procedure? Or do we need to paint that left valve blue and paint the right valve red or something? So again, having this type of, let's say, technology or digital tool can help prioritize your scarce resources when it comes to training. So we talked about critical procedures. I think there was a conversation earlier about, okay, this is great for critical procedures that we don't do very often. But actually, it could be very useful for procedures that are performed all the time. So this is an example from a customer for truck drivers. So truck drivers, they had to watch a 15-minute video before coming on site, and then they get gate access. That was basically the training. Then they get shadowed maybe 3 times by an actual operator, 3 loads, and then they make a decision whether that driver's good to go. But this company has now implemented this, where the drivers can train on this procedure, on this asphalt loading rack, before they arrive on site, and they have to get a passing score of, I think it's 100. They have to physically, pass in Voovio before they get gate access. That's reduced the number of, let's say, load shadowings that the customers needed to do. And it's really simple. Again, you can access it with any phone. You'll see I'm lowering the ramp here. I'm on top of the loading ramp. I've got to now open the truck lid, select the spout, and you'll see that's what the spout looks like. And I'm physically going to load or drag the spout into the truck and then hook it up. And then even beyond that, you open the supply valve, but the AccuLoad system, a lot of our customers tell us that the AccuLoad system is problematic. People input the wrong variables, the wrong data. So again, with this type of technology, you can ease those pains for the truck drivers and for operations. So it's not only critical procedures, it could be everyday procedures where there are incidents. But I'd like to leave it there. And hopefully this has given some of you who have never seen Voovio before an insight into what we do. Some of our customers are here today. But if you have any more, let's say, more questions, we are available. But I'm going to pass it on now to Jaime. I think this is one of the closing slides.
I promise I only have one slide, which is this one. So I get to. I just brought up this picture because flying into Houston on Monday, which, as you can tell, I'm not from South Texas or Louisiana. I was just sweeping through a National Geographic, and I ran into this picture, and it was funny because it was titled "Homesick," if I may translate it that way. And this is about a photographer that is obsessed with the past, it seems, right? So he has been traveling around the world trying to capture scenes of places that haven't changed over time. And the funny thing is that if you read through the caption note, it tells everything that I just said, and that explains that, as you can see, there is a kind of black hole in the right-hand side. And it seems that this was the photographer that deleted, with Photoshop, a traffic sign. So, this is a guy who is trying to demonstrate that places in the world don't change, but at the same time, he's changing the reality because he wants to make his theory. Now, my point bringing this up is this is the same feeling that sometimes we have when we talk to industry people, that you hear that they complain about the reality, about the new workforce coming in, that things are not like in the past, that people are not reliable. And I just wanted to, say, yeah, that's true. That's what it is. This is the reality. And I want to play a little bit the devil's advocate here, which is I want to bring a positive note on the new generation, right? I think that one of the biggest problems or the challenges that we have is changing and adapting to what digital native people want. They have grown with those things, with the phones. They're used to find information immediately. My eldest son is 9 years old. He's using already Chromebook and going through Wikipedia, doing work. With his age, I was using the encyclopedia or the dictionary, trying to. So the point is, this is technology. This is what it is. So we need to accept that people need different tools. And I think that's where maybe we're failing a little bit, which is understanding that maybe we need to give them different training tools, right? You cannot expect that somebody that is, used to immediacy, that they just want to watch a TV show and go directly to Netflix. Now I want to hear this song and go to Spotify, and now I have this question, and now I go to ChatGPT and ask and get the answer, that he's going to be prepared to spend 9 months in classroom going through a 3-ring binder explaining a process and learning a process. No, I honestly don't think that will fly over time. Now, there are ways to overcome this. And one of them is, leveraging digital technologies. And to me, digital is not, this happened once, which is talking about this. There was a person telling us, yeah, we have already adopted digital SOPs. Oh, what do you mean? Oh, we just have PDFs and put it in the tablets. Well, that doesn't sound right? So the point is, we need to bring the reality to the screen and make that reality available to the new workforce. So they can learn, they can practice, they can learn the trade by repeating at their own pace, anywhere, anytime. Okay, so I just want to bring this note, just food for thought, okay? And with this, I just want to bring this event to the closure. I really thank you all for coming. We hope that you have enjoyed this day. Thanks to Ron Lee for putting everything together, and the Voovio team for coming, and again, thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaime.